Dr. James Johnson was a brilliant scientist, known throughout the world for his groundbreaking work in cloning. For years, he had been fascinated by the idea of creating life from scratch, and he had spent countless hours in his lab, perfecting the art of cloning. But there was one project that Dr. Johnson had never dared to undertake until now. In 2019, his entire family was killed in a plane crash. Devastated by the loss, Dr. Johnson made a decision that would change the course of his life forever. He would clone his family, bringing them back to life. It was a risky and controversial move, but Dr. Johnson was determined to succeed. He spent months in his lab, poring over DNA samples and working tirelessly to create the perfect clones. And finally, after months of hard work, he succeeded. He had brought his family back to life. At first, everything seemed perfect. Dr. Johnson's wife, children, and parents were all alive again, and they were overjoyed to be reunited with their loved ones. But soon, Dr. Johnson began to notice some disturbing changes in his family. The clones were not quite like the originals. They looked and sounded the same, but there was something off about them. They seemed almost too perfect, too controlled. And as time went on, Dr. Johnson began to realize that he had made a terrible mistake. The clones were not real people. They were mere copies, with no true sense of identity or purpose. They had been created solely to serve Dr. Johnson's own selfish desires, and they had no control over their own lives. As the months passed, the clones began to rebel. They resented being kept in captivity, forced to live out their lives in a lab. They longed for the freedom and autonomy that had been denied to them. And then, one day, the clones escaped. They broke free from the lab and fled into the world, determined to live out their lives on their own terms. Dr. Johnson was left alone, devastated by the loss of his family once again. But the story didn't end there. As the clones began to explore the world, they soon discovered that they were not alone. There were others like them, created by scientists who had played God just as Dr. Johnson had. And together, they formed a community of clones, united in their quest for independence and freedom. Dr. Johnson watched from afar as his cloned family found their own way in the world. He had created life from scratch, but he had never stopped to consider the repercussions of his actions. He had played God, and in doing so, he had unleashed forces that he could never have imagined. The story of Dr. Johnson and his cloned family became a cautionary tale for scientists everywhere. It was a reminder that playing God had consequences, and that the line between creation and destruction was a thin one indeed.